Okay. The slide is visible, right?
Yes, yes, it is
Yeah.
visible.
Oh, okay. Just a minute. So this is the business. There are other ways of business model is like identifying various risks, which is very very common in rating
सर
agencies.
आप कुछ कह रहे
Like
थे,
what is the
आलोक सर,
raw material? Huh. Yes. Sorry.
आलोक सर कुछ कह रहे थे.
I was just saying, Manik, that because
Yes.
of certain reasons, our official platform Zoom is busy with an
Yeah.
FTP
Yeah.
going on, close to 100 participants across the country. So we are now
Okay.
planning that we'll have a parallel Microsoft Team, Google
Okay.
Meet, and Zoom also being used. So once
Very good.
this COVID thing gets away, we probably
Right.
are going to integrate this in our teaching systems.
Oh, great, sir. Great.
Right.
वैसे I have seen only, to be very frank, only IMS on the social media, so active on webinars,
Right.
so active on webinars that
Sir,
none of
ऐसा है,
other
मानिक आपको
premier भी
बताऊं,
schools. Yes.
I always believe communication of any kind is not a mastery of that language or the tool. It is
Right.
about content.
Right.
Because we have a large amount of content, that's why we are able to communicate. We are active. हमारे यहाँ कल हमने we yesterday inaugurated our major online 3 months program with Government of India, which has
Okay.
been launched across 350,000 common services center.
Okay.
So a secretary level officer was Government of India was there with us to inaugurate. The point is that
Okay.
we are doing so much that in fact जो social media channel कम पड़ जाते हैं हमारे communication के लिए.
हाँ, right. Sir.
और अखबार आजकल छप नहीं रहे.
हाँ,
छप भी रहे तो
right.
बट नहीं रहे तो हमने उसपे ad निकाला नहीं.
correct.
So one way or the other, we have a lot to communicate. And I believe
True.
अभी तो in fact अभी AACS भी accredited. So anyway, let's start with your presentation.
Sure. Thanks. So I was telling this is one way. The other ways are to identify the risks. So that is very very common in credit rating agencies because their perspective is to analyze companies from a risk point of view. What is the downside and majorly what is the downside and what is the upside, right? So those risks are like there is a raw material risk. So what risk can be in the raw material? Whether the raw material is scarce, from where, what is the source of purchasing, procurement of the raw material, correct? Whether if it is raw material is imported, whether proper forex hedging has been done or not, whether who has the stronger bargaining, which is the point which I'm taking from the Porter's model, strong bargaining power in terms of the fixation of the price, that can be raw material risk. Then whether the increase in the raw material price is borne by the company or it is passed on to the finished goods to the customers. That's another kind of a way we analyze the business model. That's a raw material risk. So another that is one type. Then another is demand of take risk. So whether whatever we are producing, whether there is going to be a sufficient demand, how much other competitors or how much other players are there in the market, how much is the total capacity of that product in the market, at what price we are selling and at what price the competitors are selling, whether we are efficient enough that we are selling at a right at a competitive price with the same kind of a quality of or better quality. Then comes technology. The technology is one of the, it has become over a past decade very very important part in terms of analyzing any company. So I'll give you a very live example in a company which we analyzed. So the company was a subsidiary of a indirect subsidiary of a government, where they started manufacturing some specialized kind of chemicals, where the technology was very guarded technology, and in the whole world only two players had that patent. So only two players could give that kind of a share, that kind of a technology through a technological collaboration. So that particular company, suppose I name that, I can't name that company, but I'm just telling you if that name of that company was ABC Limited. They entered into agreement with that company for the technology agreement. So they both entered into technology agreement for a period of 10 years. But again, nobody analyzed that what is going to happen after 10 years. So it was very simple that the other company got a better bargain and went into with some other player. So important point is that you must understand that there has to be some exit clause, and what that exit clause says in a technology agreement. So normally we emphasize or we see this particular word is that technology agreement is irrevocable in nature. Even if the technology provider wants to stop it, that company cannot stop that agreement. Even if that company is maybe an equity partner in that company, they may cease to be the shareholder of the company, but they cannot move out of the company in terms of technology, because the company ABC Limited is not a technology company, or in that period of time they should have proper transfer of the technology from that technology company. This is what is a real example. Also, we can draw parallels from Hero Honda company. Hero was in India, was one of the fastest growing markets because of the population, whereas Honda had all the technology. But over a period of time, both, Honda took advantage in terms of getting into the deep roads of India, where the rural markets, where the two-wheeler has the largest customers. And on the other side, Hero, to some extent or to a large extent, was able to imbibe the technology of Honda and may have developed some kind of internal kind of engine which it used to buy from the Honda. So this technology agreements plays a very very important roles in arriving at the credit rating, because credit rating are future looking it gives a guidance that if it is a triple B minus or a triple B in a foreseeable 2-3 years, it is expected to remain at this level. The ratings may keep changing, will come down depending on the environment, but a long term rating means at least it will remain at that level for 2 to 3 years. Okay, that's a very basic assumption, right? So this is how the business is understood in terms of Porter's model or in terms of risk, and there can be a number of another risks. Okay, so which maybe in a detailed class it can be studied. So we move to the next. It's not just a minute. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. So now I'll come to the point of working capital. Again, working capital is considered the backbone of any company. If your working capital is choked or fully utilized and you don't have funds for working capital, even you have huge amount of orders, you may not be able to execute it. The company may be under liquidity stress. Even if it, again, the thing from which I started, you have a PAT of 100 crores, you may not have a penny in your pocket, right? That 100 crores will have zero meaning, have no meaning. So that is why working capital utilization or prudent management of working capital is very very important. Now, what do you mean by working capital? Very very fundamental question, very fundamental. So very standard answer, two answers I received. One is a mathematical answer, and another is a English grammar answer. So mathematical answer is current, or ratio analysis answer is current assets minus current liabilities is working capital. Or the second answer is what I understand or from I hear from the participant is the money required for day-to-day operations. So the point is, what does it mean? Can you explain it in terms to a 12th class standard? Then it is worthwhile to explain. Otherwise, with these two sentences, it is very difficult to make any person who doesn't have a commerce background to make it understand. So I have tried to simplify it. So let's see how we analyze or we understand the working capital. So first I will try from the business operations point of view, and then from balance sheet point of view. So before this, I'll just explain in terms of in terms of the business cycle which I just stopped. Suppose on 1st of January we buy a raw material for converting it into finished goods. So 1st of January 2020, so we buy a raw material of 100 crores. So we assume that there is an industry practice of giving 30 days credit. So the amount gets due after 30 days is 31st of January 2020. So I'm supposed to pay to my vendor rupees 100 crores on 31st of January 2020. Please remember this date. Okay, it will be useful. Then I convert this raw material into finished goods, and my production cycle, my period of production cycle is around 10 days. Okay, so this from 1st January to 10 days, it comes to 11th January of 2020. So I have made that from raw material. Suppose that raw material was a spinning unit. So that raw material was yarn, and I converted that yarn into fabric, right? In a period of 10 days. So fabric got converted into 11th of January, and then I sold that fabric to my customers on 11th of January for a, again, there's a industry practice of 30 days credit period. Again, I have to give a 30 days credit period. So from 11th to 30 days, it works out to around, broadly 10 1 21st of February. Okay, 1 2 days, okay, here and there, just try to understand what I want to convey. But so it means I will receiving that, the product which of 100 crores I have bought, maybe I will be selling at 125 crores. Maybe there will be a lot of expenses in between, salaries, expenses, etc. But that 125 crores I will receive on 21st of February, whereas my vendor payment gets due on 31st of January. So that 31st January I didn't have any money, okay, because I bought goods on credit, right? And I again sold the goods on credit. So to fund that 100 crores on 31st January is called working capital. Okay, that's a very very simple kind of, understand. That's why you have to understand the conversion. It is called, you can call it cash conversion cycle, you can call it operating cycle, whatever by name you can call it, but the point is that this is the 31st January we have to make the payment to vendor. That payment is called requirement of working capital. So this is what I've explained. I had a cash, to some extent I invested in my company. I bought raw materials. With the buying of raw materials, that amount gets converted into creditors. That once I buy raw material, that is called inventory. I converted that inventory into finished goods. That finished goods are sold. Selling of finished good to the customers, I give a credit. That credit becomes, by giving that credit, the sales becomes the debtors, and after 30 days I get the cash back. So this is the cycle. So the point here what I want to make is that is the amount of working capital where I need creditors and I don't have the money. That is where either there can be n number of sources which I will discuss later, but that is a working capital which we need, right? This is from the point of view of business. Now I will try to make you understand, you guys, from the point of view of balance sheet. That is also very 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 interesting. So this is one balance sheet, and this is very simplified balance sheet. So let's first understand the second balance sheet. First try to concentrate on the second balance sheet, where the equity share capital is 100, long term loans are 100 crores, creditors is 100, so total is 300, fixed assets are 150, and debtors are 150, right? So let's not calculate working capital from current assets to current liabilities. Let's try understanding from sources and means of finance, right? So so the fixed assets of 150, if we try to understand from where it has been funded, it has been funded out of, we have a long term fund. So long term fund should be invested into long term assets. So 150 crores, presumably, it is very apparent, there's no need to presume, in fact 150 odd crores is funded out of 200 crores of our long term funds, consisting of 100 crores of equity share capital and 100 crores of long term loans. So this 200 crores is, out of this 200 crores, 50 crores have gone to fixed assets of 150 crores. So rest 50 crores is left to us, right? So now let's see, we are left with 50 crores and creditors of 100 crores. So debtors are 150 crores. So how, from where these debtors are funded? These debtors are funded 100 crores of creditors and 50 crores of that long term funds, which are available and which are left after funding the fixed assets. So that 50 crores of that long term funds plus 100 crores of creditors funds our debtors of 150 crores, right? So here, what is the working capital? That amount of long term funds which is invested into current assets is called working capital. That 50 crores which I'm referring to, which is left in the long term funds after funding, after getting deployed into fixed assets of 150 crores, which is invested into debtors, is called working capital. And that is what the mathematical formula also tells us. That is 150 crores minus 100 crores, it is 50 crores. So we can, in a very simplistic manner, we can call it as investment of long term funds into short-term or a current assets is called working capital. Likewise, very much likewise, if we reverse this statement or vice versa, that investment of short-term funds into long-term assets, whether it is called a working capital, that we'll understand from the first balance sheet. So here, let's see. Now here the fixed assets deployment is rupees 250 crores, whereas our long-term assets and whereas our equity share capital, long-term funds constituting equity share capital is 100 crores, long-term loans is 100 crores. So out of this 250 crores, 250 crores is funded out of 200 crores of long-term funds. So rest 50 crores is still, we have to analyze from where that 50 crores has come. What is the means of finance of that 50 crores? So we see that our creditors have funded 50 crores to the extent of 50 crores to the debtors, and the rest 50 crores has gone to the fixed assets. So it means deployment of short-term funds into long-term assets is called a working capital, or to be very precise, it is called negative working capital. And here also, if we mathematical formula, if we see our current assets, which is denominated by debtors 50 crores minus creditors of 100 crores is minus 50 only, right? So negative working capital is deployment of our short-term assets, deployment of our short-term funds into long-term assets is a negative working capital. A positive working capital is investment of long-term funds into current assets in a very, very simplified manner, right? So now the question comes up, this is the question, whether negative working capital is good or bad. It's very, very important to understand. So apparently from this example which I have explained, negative working capital is not at all good, because it means investment of short-term funds into long-term assets. Again, by an example, I will explain this. If your creditors, if you're given a creditors of 100 crores, or for that matter, to make it even simplified, you've taken a short-term loan which is due in next 12 months of 100 crores, and that for that short-term loan you bought a machinery, you bought a fixed assets of 100 crores. So after 12 months, that particular vendor will come up for the amount due of 100 crores, whereas you don't have that funds, because that 100 crores amount is invested into a machinery or a fixed assets. And what is the definition of fixed asset? Definition of fixed asset says that it will generate revenues over a period of time, not that it will generate revenue in only 1 year. It will generate revenue till the life of that asset, which may be 5 years, which may be 8 years, or which may be 10 years. So, but if the banker comes and demands its loan of 100 crores, of short-term loan of 100 crores, that particular entrepreneur or the company will have to sell that property. And that is where it gets into liquidity crisis. If you start selling your fixed assets to repay your creditors or to repay your your debt owners or the lenders, then it is one point that you're coming under liquidity stress. That should not happen. So very apparently it says that negative working capital is bad for the company. Okay, I will also explain in what circumstances it is good. Okay, so this is very in a simplified manner. I have mentioned long-term financing should be into fixed assets and should also be part of the working capital, and short-term should only be into working capital, right? Now this is various permutation combinations. So application of long-term funds into short-term assets, it is judicious or it is not judicious? Yes, it is judicious. In previous example we have checked it. Application of short-term funds into long-term assets, it is absolutely not not absolutely, but it is not judicious. Okay, in certain circumstances it is good. Then application of long-term funds into long-term assets, fine. Application of short-term funds into short-term assets is perfectly fine, right? So now I'll tell you under what circumstances we have negative working capital good. Negative working capital may not be a bad situation. So in a companies like hotel companies, or in a companies like retail companies, or a FMCG companies, what we do, if you go to a big bazaar kind of a company, or a Reliance Retail, or a Easy Day, you make payment upfront in cash or maybe through credit card. So the retail company receives money across the table. That is called over the counter OTC sales. So it has a zero debtors, right? But it purchases commodities, or it purchases inventory or merchandise which it keeps in its in its retail outlet or in its retail store on a credit. So their debtors are zero, and they may have inventory or may have some creditors. So their working capital may be zero or negative. So in most of the, if you see the balance sheet of HUL or other FMCG or retail companies, you will see that the company has a negative working capital. So it doesn't mean it is bad. It means their business model is like that. Another example from point of view of again from a porter's point of view is, if a company has a stronger bargaining power, if a company has a stronger bargaining power, it may squeeze its creditors period, or squeeze its debtors period, like Maruti and Hero Motocorp. They take money upfront from the dealers, whereas they have an elongated creditor cycle, whereas they pay to their vendors on a maybe 60 days, 70 days, whereas they get upfront payment of in 2 to 5 days from their dealers. So that shows that if a company has a very strong bargaining power, it may have a negative working capital. But the point which is to be understood is that if there is a negative working capital, you have to see the balance sheet. Where is that surplus funds are getting into investment? Whether it is getting into fixed assets, again, that is bad thing. If negative working capital is a case where the funds are getting invested into fixed assets, it is not a good case. If they are getting invested into liquid funds or getting deployed again for more amount of debtors or liquid assets, then it is, or liquid investment, then it is perfectly fine. So you guys must go and see the balance sheets of hotel companies, the balance sheet of retail companies, the balance sheet of OEMs like Hero Motocorp or Maruti, and vis-a-vis you see a balance sheet of other manufacturing companies, maybe steel companies, Tata Steel. You will see that analyze the working capital of these two set of companies, just for your own knowledge. You will see that these companies have a negative working capital and it is good, and whereas Tata Steel companies have a very long operating or a cash conversion cycle, and they have to invest a lot in the working capital, have to take debt to fund the working capital, and every debt has its own cost, which has impact on liquidity, and it has impact on the profitability of the company, right? So now we come to the indicators of working capital. So how do you understand that the working capital intensity is very high? So first three, the inputs are absolutely same. Working capital definition is current assets minus current liabilities. Current ratio is, rather than subtracting current liabilities from current assets, we are dividing current liabilities. If we have a negative working capital, it straightforward will have a less than one of current ratio, or other way around. If we have a less than one current ratio, you can fairly assume or 100% assume that the company will have a negative working capital. Then you have to analyze whether it is good or it is bad, depending upon the nature of the sector, depending upon the strong bargaining power of that particular company, right? Again, third is the operating cycle. Operating cycle is debtor days plus inventory days minus creditor days. Again, if it is a negative operating cycle, it means will have a negative working capital, and it will have a less than unity of current ratio. Very, very, very straightforward formula. Okay, this is another point which I understand that a lot of people, they know about the debt equity, which is long term debt divided by the net worth of the company, or we call it equity. And the formula for overall gearing is total debt. It means long term debt plus working capital debt divided by net worth of the company. So the difference between the two is only about, in the numerator, about the working capital only. So if the difference between the two is very high, it means working capital is very high. Rest of all the elements in the formula is same. So you can very quickly see that working capital, what is the difference between overall gearing and debt to equity ratio. DSCR cash, DSCR, let's park it right now. It may not be, it will be covered later. The last one is utilization of working capital limits. So if we take a working capital limits from the bank, normally working capital limits, they works like a credit card, and I hope that you must be knowing about the credit cards in this scenario, that it is revolving in nature. So if I have 100 crores of a working capital is meant for to fund the debtors and inventory. So it will keep on moving up and down the balance. So if your balance always keeps around 100%, it means you're utilizing fully. It means you're churning of debtors, creditors, and inventories on a very it's not very higher side. It is on a very lower side. That is why working capital utilization is on a very higher side. So higher the churning or faster the churning, faster word is the correct word. Faster the churning, better it is. It will go up, balance will come down. Will go up, balance should come down. But if it consistently remains for some period up, then it comes down. Then again it goes up for a consistently long period of time. Then it means that working capital intensity of that particular company is very, very high. Okay. So this I have covered. Positive, negative figure has, it provides some signal in isolation, does not have any meaning. Same for first three. Again, the significant, I'm talking about debt to equity and overall gearing. A significant variation in the two ratios may indicate working capital intensity nature of the operations. DSCR I will be covering later once I cover the coverage ratios. Then full utilization of CC limits may be signal of working capital intensity and possibly stretched liquidity position. Okay, just go through this for a minute. I'll just have a water. Yeah. So I hope this is clear. We can take up questions when it is open. The session is open. Okay. So another way is, this is the question that how do we, if there's another way to understand about working capital intensity is to make comparison between profit after tax and cash flow from operating activities, which in rating agencies would normally analyze. So this is one kind of a I've just framed one question to make you understand about working capital intensity from a cash flows point of view. So here you see that our PAT, if we just remove that, here in this question is analyze whether the company's working capital intensity is high or low. So depreciation is 500 crores, interest expense is 1250 crores, PAT is 1250 crores, and cash flow from operating activities. This cash flow from operating activities is from the cash flow statement. Okay, this is not from a profit and loss account. So cash flow from operating activities is 390 crores. So if we want to understand whether the working capital intensity is high or low in a very simplistic manner, if I calculate profit before change, cash profit before change in working capital, here it works out to 1200 plus 1250, 2450 plus 500, which is 2750. So we have to make a comparison between 2750 is the cash profit before working capital changes and cash flow from operating activities, which is 390 crores. So the comparison is 2750 and 390 crores. So difference between the two is what? I'm not talking about the value, but the difference between the two is the working capital change. It means there is a significant funds of profit are invested, or you can say blocked in working capital. This is what this table shows. You can have a look at it. 1200 plus 500, this is our cash profit, plus interest expense 12750, which I explained, it is 2750. So rest amount is, the actual is increase in current assets, means increase current assets means we are blocking our working capital. I'm not saying good or bad. It means maybe it is increase in debtors. We are giving, credit period. Maybe it's an industry practice, right, in that particular sector. Then decrease in current liabilities. It is again that our funds are, moving out of the business. That is what it is. We are making payment to creditors. That is called decrease in current liabilities. So this 1360 and 1200, this works out to 2560. So the difference between 2750 and 390 is 2560. So this 2560 is bringing down our cash availability into the company, right? So that is our cash flow from operating activity is 390 crores. So we can, from this table, we can sum up the kind of sentence it is mentioned besides it, that if a company manages its working capital well, then ideally its cash flow from operating activities, okay, should be higher than PAT because of adding back of the interest and depreciation. So whenever your cash flow from operating activities is significantly lower than your cash profits, you can understand that the amount is funded, or the working capital is getting a lot of working capital intensity is there in the company, which may or may not be good, is another point which we as an analyst one must probe it, right? So this is also another way to analyze working capital intensity, which in credit rating agencies we do. So this is very quickly, I've summarized it. How elongated working capital impacts the business. On a liquidity side, elongated debtors collection period may result into non-recoverability, and again same PAT, which initially I have explained, PAT conversion into cash. Then creditor days, if you're not able to collect money from your debtors, your creditors may get stuck up or elongated, and they may stop supplying raw material to you, which can hamper your production and eventually your sales. So creditors may also be stretched, resulting into risk of non-availability of raw material. How it impacts solvencies? The indicator for solvency is debt to equity or overall gearing. So it may get, if the large amount of working capital is funded out of debt, then that debt again comes with a cost. It will have an interest cost. It will lead to a cash outflow to the bank for the interest cost. It will get debited to our profit and loss account, bringing down to the our profits. And at the same time, the debt would get added, and it will our debt to equity ratio will get increased. Next is profitability. So again, with interest, I've explained that profitability will come down. Cash flows, both you will have a debt repayment obligation and you have a interest payment obligation. So your cash flow from operating activity gets, would get involved, would get deployed in the debt repayments, and that would come down. So this is very briefly I've explained the impact of elongated working capital on liquidity, solvency, profitability, and cash flows. So these very whether every, and this I just skip it up, it's a very simple means of finance. These are the means of finance for working capital, which is cash credit, overdraft. Bias credit has now been is been discontinued. Letter of credit is there. Bank, these all you can study in your books. This is also one of the ways which I'm just explaining because of the paucity of time. I want to come on to the solvency. So what do you mean by solvency? So very, very simple definition of solvency is, if today the company is like, if we have to stop the company today, what is the strength of the company to pay off its total liabilities? That is what is solvency. So ability of an entity to continue its operation for a long period of time. And if whether you have sufficient assets today to complete your, or to pay back all your liabilities, that is what is called solvency. These are the two ratios which are used to calculate the solvency. It is, first is debt equity ratio. It means total debt divided by total net worth. Another is overall gearing. This is solvency to the extent of our debt only. So there is another important ratio which is not covered here and which is now being used more, is total outside liability to total net worth. That is the right indicator for the analyzing the solvency. So total outside liabilities, how much outside liabilities uh, do we have, and how much assets we have to fund that liability if we have to pay back that liability, right? So next is from the point of view of credit ratings, we do a lot of adjustments to this, total debt or total net worth. It is not that very easily we can. It is from the balance sheet we take total debt and or the total outside liabilities and divided by total net worth. So most important part is the corporate guarantees. So many times the lenders, if the company is new or the company is weak, or they think that company is not right now, is not in a position, may not be in a position to pay back its debt, then it might take the corporate guarantee of its holding company, or maybe a stronger company, any stronger company, which may or may not be a uh, which may or may not be a parent company. Just a minute. So whenever there is a corporate guarantee given by a stronger entity to a weaker entity, in that case, we have to consider the amount of corporate guarantee given by the stronger entity as if that stronger entity has taken that debt in its own book. That is what adjustment. Though in the balance sheet, suppose I'll the name like ABC Limited is a stronger entity or maybe a holding company, and its subsidiary company is XYZ Limited. So if XYZ Limited takes a debt on a corporate guarantee of ABC Limited, debt of rupees 100 crores, okay, and corporate guarantee has been given by ABC Limited, so this corporate guarantee would be mentioned in the contingent liability of the ABC Limited. Okay, so for that matter, this 100 crores taken by XYZ Limited will be added to the debt of ABC Limited to calculate the debt to equity ratio, as if the debt has been taken by ABC Limited only. And for the purpose of DSCR also, we will add the debt obligations of that 100 crores into the debt obligations of ABC Limited to calculate DSCR also. Because at any given point in time, if XYZ fails to repay the debt, the liability the liability comes to the ABC Limited. So in a balance sheet, though ABC Limited, only the debt of ABC Limited would appear, whereas for the all practical purposes, ABC Limited is responsible for the repayment of 100 crores is if XYZ Limited fails to repay. So this is about the XYZ. This is about the solvency. So it's a lot, so the next question is, high gearing ratio is good or bad? Or it depends upon sector to sector, whether in which sector. If you cyclical,
Narangji, your voice is breaking, I think. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
It's okay now. Yeah.
Hello.
Please. Hanji, ab theek hai.
Okay. I will take 5 minutes, then we'll take questions.
Yes. We'll have to rejoin again actually.
Because again it's going to less than 1 minute.
So another 3 minutes. After that we'll rejoin. Then we'll take up the questions and we'll end up the meeting.
Okay. When we rejoin, we'll take the questions.
Right.
Okay. So I was referring that under which circumstances the gearing ratio or a high debt to equity is good or bad. So in a cyclical sector like steels, if the time is it's every 4 or 5 years, it's a commodity, it's a cyclical industry. So every 4 or 5 years there's a the sales are up, and after that it comes down as on a cycle, and then again it moves up. That happens with every cyclical kind of industry. So in a cyclical industry, when the times are good, it is better to pay off the debts and to deleverage itself. Whereas when the times are bad, so it is to hedge yourself when the times are bad. So in those companies, normally lenders or credit rating agencies, from lenders' point of view, they don't give very high gearing, because when the times are not so good, then they will be under huge obligation or a liquidity stress, or their solvency get impacted to repay the debt. So that is the reason that for a cyclical industry, debt equity ratio should not be very high, right? Whereas in which industries you can have a